I am Narayana Swami. I welcome you all to this meeting. I'll start the session with invocation prayer, and I will also end the session with a few prayers usually used for closing such sessions. Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Ganana Tva Ganapatigam Havamahe Kavinamupamastravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspada Srinvannuti Sadanam Om Sri Mahaganapataye Namaha Prano Devi Saraswati Vaje Eber Vajini Vati Dhinama Vitriyavatu Om Sri Maha Saraswati Namaha Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I welcome you all to this 12 Zoom lectures. In a sense, we are all part of a yajna, and this is the early setting up and the preliminaries of the yajna. This is a major effort. Many persons have enrolled. So I will start with a few introductory remarks and then go to the presentation, to my formal talk. All of us know the Vedas as the Pramanas of Sanatana Dharma. By Pramana, we mean the authoritative text. The authoritative text of Sanatana Dharma. Yet, most Sanatana Dharma followers have not had a formal education. Their knowledge of Veda mostly has come from what they see their forefathers doing, what they have learned from their parents. They have worship at home. They take the children, as they were children, they have taken them to temples. But as we grow and become adults and do our own professional work, then we try to read about Vedas and we try to hear the messaging. And the general messaging on the Vedas that we all heard are, Vedas are used for puja and yajnas. Vedas are rituals. Some of the English publications state that the Vedas make no sense at all and do not contain any wisdom. And then we have the more conventional messaging, Vedas or Veda Samhitas or Karma Kanda. Vedas and Vedas are the Karma Kanda as opposed to Vedanta as the Jnana Kanda. So with varying levels of messaging, certainly not in a very enlightening manner, wanting to read or understand. Therefore, many people not having the opportunities to learn Veda, they have abandoned the study of Veda and try to learn Vedanta or yoga. These are all parts of the old system. And as these efforts progress, the Vedas and Veda Samhitas are completely abandoned. I was a Veda practitioner. I was introduced to my Diksha by my father before the age 11. And we had the family Shiva Puja, and my father taught me soon thereafter how to conduct the family Shiva Puja. Since that time, I have been a Veda practitioner chanting Veda mantras, except for a lapse of about 10 to 15 years when I was in the graduate and postgraduate studies, and until I settled down after marriage as a family. So I have benefited by these Vedas, and I did not subscribe to these views on the Vedas. And I also firmly believed that Vedas contain knowledge, because we have heard Vedas are the oldest books of knowledge. Yet, so we all have the reverence as Vedas are the oldest books, but we do not know what is that wisdom, what exactly it says. When we do invite a priest to conduct a function, priest chant the mantras, and we follow the instructions supplied by the priest. But beyond that, we do not obtain much information. So with all these things, I try to set out to study this deeply, and I have few teachers on the way, and I was able to get a better understanding as published by Sri Aurobindo, Kapali Shastri, and Professor Kashyap. In that lineage, they have brought out the spiritual and psychological meanings of the Veda mantras. So I will try to provide in these lectures what I have understood. So these lectures will contain my own experiences as a Veda practitioner, along with the last 8 to 10 years of my research on the Vedas that I am doing under Professor Kashyap. So with these introductory remarks, I proceed to the formal. So what I'm going to do in today's lecture is to give an overview of what you are going to hear in these 12 lectures. And I start, as we all know, with the basic statement: Vedas are the oldest books of wisdom that the world has seen. Vedas has served as the model book for many later religions, and Vedas or Veda mantras, and I'm going to add a few words: Rishi, mantra, revelation. These mantras are obtained from the mantras reside. Rigveda says these mantras reside in Parame Vyoman. Parame Vyoman, the supreme station, where the supreme along with the devas reside, and rishis, people who perform meditation, and when they are in their superconscious state, they are able to hear these mantras, and hence the Veda mantras, Vedas are known as Shruti. It is heard. It is also stated they can see the mantras written in front of them. So they are also known as mantra drashtas. So these rishi in their superconscious state hear a mantra and chant aloud, and their shishyas will memorize that. There was no copy, writing pen or paper in those days. So the disciples sitting around the rishi hear all these mantras, memorize that, and when the rishi comes out of the superconscious state, rishi looks at the chandas and the proper construction of the mantra, and some of them he throws away and rest of them he accepts. So that is how the Veda mantras have been received. Of course, our belief is Veda mantras always exist, and where the belief comes from is, it is stated as Yasya Nishwasitam Vedaha. That supreme person, Nishwasitam, breathing are the mantras. So since the Supreme Person breathes all the time, so the mantras exist all the time, which is true. The mantras are in Paramevyoman, and there are cases reported of a person in Mysore, Devrada, about 40 years ago. He was in deep meditative state, he and his guru, and he was seeing the mantras and chanting them out. His guru noted them down, but they could not make much sense of it and they dropped it. So it is possible even now for someone to get these mantras, as by example of this Devavrata. So the revelation that we are talking about in Sanatana Dharma of the Veda Mantra Samhita is different from the revelation of the Semitic religions, where the Lord has written down the commands and left it somewhere and for somebody to pick up the scrolls of that. Whereas these mantras are existing, and anybody who goes through the process of becoming a rishi can still pick up these mantras. They are in Paramevyoman available. So that is how these Veda mantras are obtained. So we have to visualize where it occurred in the Indus Valley civilization, Saraswati and other rivers. People collect a rishi. One becomes a rishi only if a mantra is revealed to that person. He is able to obtain a mantra by his meditation. Rishi's son or daughter is not a rishi. If they want to become, they have to continue the meditation, reach superconscious state, and be able to have a mantra revealed to them. Until that time, they cannot be called a rishi. So this rishi and the disciples, he will teach them, he will show them how to become a rishi, and they have received additional mantras, and they are all scattered all over the place. And this went on. They led a very happy life. But after a couple thousand years, so I, in my book and based on my research, these Veda Mantra Samhitas are 6000 BCE or earlier. Immediately, some of you may have questioned, because most texts that came out in the 19th century, especially the English texts, said that Vedas are 1500 BCE or 1000 BCE. There are reasons we do not want to go into that at this time, why they concluded so. But the last 30 to 50 years of archaeological evidence done by Indian Archaeological Society, where French, British, and other archaeologists came and checked the evidence on the ground, point out that the Indus Valley and Harappan civilization began 7000 BCE or earlier, and the Veda Mantra Samhitas are 6000 BC or earlier. Around 4000 BC or so, the Rishi clan, towards the end, things are developing, more development started. So more people went into other opportunities available, like town planning, the structures being built, farming, trade. And the rishis did not have enough people, shishyas, to follow this rigorous life, disciplined life of meditation, reaching superconscious state, and get a mantra revealed to them. So when towards the end, around 4000 BCE or 3900 BCE, we do not know, around that time, around 4000 BCE, the Rishi clan came to an end. And that is the end of the Vedic period. So towards a few hundred years prior to that, when the Rishis found out that the skilled, intellectual, knowledgeable people willing to go through this meditative lifestyle and become a Rishi are becoming less and less, Rishi said, if we teach only the spiritual meaning, the wisdom in the Vedas, and show them how to become a rishi and show them the inner meaning and the power of the Veda mantras. And others are not, most of them are not following that line. These Veda mantras, Vedas will not be preserved for posterity. So rishis also explained the external meanings of these mantras and the outer yajnas. So for the commoners who were involved in other pursuits, so rishis had two types of disciples. One set known as the initiate disciples, who are willing to follow a life of disciplined life and meditation and receive the mantras, and the large majority of the people who want to pursue their trade and whenever they get time, perform the yajnas, to them external meaning and the yajnas. And since the rishis themselves were handling both set of people, there was no problem. Both the spirituality, the wisdom, and the inner meanings were also shared by the rishis to the commoners. So it is called the initiate disciples and the commoners. But the commoners were happy with the external meanings and the yajnas. The difficulty to understand the Vedas are, one is that it is in the old Sanskrit language. A second is that it contains a lot of symbols and symbolism. And also the mantras have external or direct meanings and a spiritual or adhyatmic meanings. Therefore, to fully understand the Vedas, one must look at not only the external meaning, but the adhyatmic meaning, the spiritual and adhyatmic meanings. The wisdom and the spirituality comes when you try to understand the adhyatmic meanings of the Veda mantras. But if you simply look at the external meanings, then there are some passages that do not make full sense. Since rishis were the same people who were teaching both initiate disciples and the commoners, they can provide the answers as needed. But at the end of the rishi period, the inner meaning, the symbols and symbolism, and the spirituality and the wisdom disappeared along with the rishis, because none of this was documented, while everything is memorized, and all the initiate disciples are also disappeared. So what remained around 4000 BCE, 3500 BCE was the Veda mantras, which have, in the 13th century, Madhvacharya says, Trayartho vai Vedaha. There are three meanings: the Adi Baudik, the external meaning; the Adi Deivik, related to the Devas; Adhyatmik, the spiritual and meanings. However, only the external meanings remained after that. Anyway, even the Veda mantras, whatever the rishis found out, none of them is in a book form. It is all remembered by certain people, and as it is being transferred by oral. Vedavyasa classified all available Veda mantras, the Veda Mantra Samhita, into 4 Vedas in 3100 BCE. From now on, the dates are more firm because the Mahabharata war has been researched due to various software and all that, and it is fairly well accepted now that the Mahabharata war happened during 3067 BCE. And of course, Lord Krishna's birth, 3100 BCE, and Kali Yuga starting closely thereafter. All those dates are fairly certain, maybe few years different also. So around 3000 BCE or 3100 BCE, Veda Vyasa classified the Vedas into Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Samaveda, and Atharva Veda. So these four Vedas, and of course, Yajur Veda later on split into Krishna Yajur Veda and Shukla Yajur Veda. But we will still use the terminology of Chatur Veda, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Samaveda, Atharva Veda. And the whole effort. So the problem is as follows. At the end of the Vedic period, no more rishis. So we have the people who have studied the Vedas and who have memorized the Vedas. They know mainly the external meanings and the outer yajna. So lot of effort by the intellectuals started to bring out the spirituality and wisdom. So the problem can be simply presented as follows. During the Vedic period and the Rishi period, the inner meaning, the symbolisms in the Vedas, and the spirituality and the wisdom in the Vedas were known to the Rishis. They themselves were responsible to share that information to the select few, what they call the initiate disciples, and to the commoners. However, after Rishi period, the Rishis ended, the spiritual meanings and the symbols have all been disappeared. Mainly, the mantras are properly preserved by the Guru Shishya Parampara. When Vedavyasa classified them into four, he assigned four people, Paila, Vaishampayana, Jaimini, and Sumantu, to be in charge of each Veda. They developed a system of Veda. So the Veda mantras that we now chant in the same, from the Guru Mukha, from the face of the Guru, the disciple learns, not from books. That tradition continues even today, and we have fairly uniform opinion that the Veda mantras are correctly preserved. However, the meaning of the mantras, that is where everyone has different views due to the difficulties and depending upon the level that depth of the understanding of all these aspects, one will be able to get the full understanding. So a series of texts came after the Veda Vyasa classification. So development of Brahmanas, Aranyakas, and Upanishads. Originally, only there were Veda Mantra Samhidas. Samhita means collection. Mantra Samhita, all the mantras collected by all the rishis. Rig Veda mentions about Rig Veda mentions all the 404 rishis. Out of this, 30 of those rishis are lady rishis, completely described in Rig Veda. Only Veda Mantra Samhitas were available at that time. To understand the full spiritual, so the whole effort from 3100 BCE until today, it is still ongoing. Various people, so many collection of publications we have. First started the Brahmanas, then Aranyakas, people retired to the forest, and the works developed is called Aranyaka, then the Upanishads. So, along with Veda Mantra Samhita, at the pinnacle, we have the Veda Mantra Samhita, then Brahmanas, and the purpose of the Brahmanas to unearth the spirituality and to get the full benefit of the Veda mantras. Then Aranyakas, people went to the forest and meditated and added. Then Upanishads. Then afterwards, Vedangas. Anga means a limb. Vedangas, there are 6 of them. Shiksha, Vyakarana, Chandas, Nirukta, Jyotisha, Kalpa. These 6 are called the Veda Angas. Veda Angas. Anga means limb. So Shiksha, Shiksham Vyakya Syamaha Varnaswaraha Matrabalam Samasantanaha. So these are 6 aspects that you need to know to pronounce the Veda mantra correctly. So similarly, Vyakarana, then Chandas, the meter, and then Nirukta, etymology, the Jyotisha, that talks about Ganita, Muhurta, and all those details, and Prashna, then Kalpa, that talks about Shalda Sutras, Grihya Sutras, and all that. So there are 6 Vedangas. So each Vedanga has a lot of text, and by studying, the idea is when you read the Veda mantra, with these Vedangas, you will be able to understand the Veda mantra more clearly. Then there are Upangas. Upangas, Upa-anga, that is supporting limbs. They are Mimamsa, Nyaya, that includes Nyaya, Vaiyeshika Nyaya, and Sankhya, which is established in Bhagavad Gita. Then Puranas, then Dharma Shastras. So these 4 are called Upangas. And this is an important point to note. The 4 Vedas, the 6 Vedangas, and the 4 Upangas, together 4 plus 6 plus 14, this is called the Chadurdasha Vidyasthana. Chadurdasha means 14, 14 centers of knowledge. And in the Vedic education of those days, all these are prerequisite for the person before he wants to specialize. And there were 4 Upavedas. Upavedas, Ayurveda, Arthashastra, Dhanurveda, Gandharva Veda. All these have enormous number of texts. So the amount of literature that are available, all of them with the single objective of understanding the spirituality and wisdom in the Vedas, and how Vedas to be utilized to lead a dharmic and harmonious life. Then there was immediately many of these things, development additions to this happened continuously until the 5th to 10th century. Then development of Shad Darsanas. Shad Darsanas, Shad means 6, Darsana means a philosophical text, because our forefathers said philosophy must not be abstract. There must be darsana. You must be able to understand and practice it. So they are called Shad Darsanas. And Shad Darsanas starts with various things, Nyaya, Vaiyeshika Nyaya, then Sankhya, then Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, Purva Mimamsa of Gemini, and Uttar Mimamsa of the Uttar Mimamsa, usually refer to the Upanishads altogether. So there are 6 philosophical systems are there. Then Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, Bhakti texts are removed, Narada Bhakti Sutra, and other Bhakti Sutras are available. Now I am moving all along to this discussions happened all the way, developments happened all the way through 5th to 10th centuries. Then Jaimini's Purva Mimamsa Sutras. And this is, we have to pay attention. Purva Mimamsa is one of the essential early understanding that contributed to the early understanding of the Vedas. And Shabari Swamin and Bandhana Mishra and others in the 6th and 7th century CE established that Purva Mimamsa is the way to proceed. And Sayana Acharyas published, and the next important work in the Vedas is by Sayana Acharya in the 14th century. he published Vedartha Prakasha. Veda Artha Prakasha, light on the meaning of the Veda mantras. That was published. Sayana Acharya was a Prime Minister of the Vijayanagar Empire, and he assembled a team of over 100 Vedic and Sanskrit scholars and published for the very first time the meaning of all the Veda mantras, which is a magnum opus we can consider, which is one of the very important work, Sayana Acharya in 1367, 14th century. So in other words, from 6000 BCE until 14th century CE, there were not, that doesn't mean that nobody understood the meaning. Meanings were all understood. It was not published. It was shared. Rishis knew all the meanings. And many other scholars who followed in the 3000 BCE, 1000 BCE, 2000 BCE, early years of century, so many works are there. I'm not mentioning any of them. They all have contributed to these, and the Upanishads explained various aspects. The Bhakti Sutras were there. Then there were the Madhvacharya's statements, publications. Madhvacharya translated Rig Veda, even though he is known mainly as the proponent of the Dvaita philosophy. Madhvacharya has also done work on Rig Veda mantras, and he contributed the famous statement, Trayartho vai Vedas. Each word has three meanings: the Adi Baudik, the external meaning; Adi Daivik, connected to the Deva; and the Adhyatmik, the spiritual. And he translated the first 40 suktas of a small part of Rig Veda according to his Trayartho meanings. Now, in the 8th through 13th century, the Upanishads development happened, and Adi Shankara published Bhashyas for Upanishads. Then Ramanuja, Deshika, Vishishtadvaita Bhashyas are there. Then Madhvacharya, Dvaita Bhashyas are there. So by 14th century, there are Upanishads with Bhashyas from Adi Shankara, Ramanuja, Deshika, Madhvacharya and their disciples. And Sayanacharya published this magnum of all the Veda mantras, the Rig Veda, the Yajur Veda, Krishna Yajur Veda, Shukla Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, and Atharva Veda. All of them he published. So by 14th century, we have the meanings of the Veda mantras. The Jaiminis, Purva Mimamsa, and Shabari Swamin and Mandara Mishra have established that Purva Mimamsa is the way to proceed. And and Sayanacharya provided the meaning. In retrospect, when we look back, even Sayanacharya stated, even though the Veda mantras have spiritual meanings, Sayanacharya stated that he is going to exclusively confine only to the external meanings, the Adi Baudik, the direct meanings of the Veda mantras alone is going to provide. He was a student of Sringeri Mutt, and he was in the Vedic yajnas and all that. These external meanings is adequate to understand the yajnas that they are doing. So he exclusively provided only the Adi Baudik meanings or the external meanings of the word mantras. The trouble with external meanings, anyway, so Jaimini's Purva Mimamsa, I will give only one important point. The Purva Mimamsa, according to Shabari Swamin and Mandara Mishra and all that, what it says is the correct chanting of the Veda mantra along with the correct conduct of the yajna will provide the phala, the results of the Veda mantras. That is Purva Mimamsa. And even today, we follow the Purva Mimamsa in all the Veda Paఠశాlas that it is. All the Shankaracharya mutts have many Veda Paఠశాlas where the students study and graduate, and then they do a 3 to 5 year prayoga practice, just like our current physicians have a training 3-year period before they become full-fledged doctors. In the same manner, the current Veda Pathshala graduates go through a 3 to 5 year, depending upon that, under a established priest who knows to conduct the prayogas. So the Purva Mimamsa statement is the correct chanting of the Veda mantra with the correct performance of the yajna will produce the desired result for the yajamana for whom the priests are conducting. That is one of the cardinal aspects of our yajnas, Purva Mimamsa of Jaimini Sutras. I will discuss all this much later in our regular classes. This is just to give the overview of what you are going to hear in the 12 lectures. Then Sainacharya's external word meanings. And this situation being as such, we must also understand that up to 8th century CE, the Vedic education that we followed in India included Chaturdasha Vidyasthana, the 4 Vedas, the 6 Vedangas, the 4 Upangas. This is a prerequisite before the person wants to be specialized on Ayurveda, or the person wants to learn Arthashastra, or the person wants to do temple building, become a Sthapati and a sculptor to build the temples or to build the buildings or various things, whatever, or Gandharva to become a dance teacher. Everyone went through this Chaturdasha Vidyasthana. From the 8th century onwards, India has been attacked by foreign invaders. Various difficulties started in the pursuit of their Veda Pathshalas and Vedic education and the Gurukulas. And in fact, recently I was reading that there are about 732,000 Veda Gurukulams existed. And if India is supposed to say 600 to 700,000 villages, almost every village had a Gurukulam. So everyone were fully studied under this Chaturdasha Vidyasthana. So by the end of this 14th century, what we now have is the precise chanting of the Veda mantras without any change. I will also discuss with you how our forefathers preserved the Veda mantra accurately. They used the 3 direct forms, 8 indirect forms of chanting the Veda mantras to preserve, to ensure that the correctness. So what we now have by the 14th, 15th century, the Purva Mimamsa being taught in Veda Pathshalas, Sainacharya's word by word meanings, external meaning only, all is available, and additional publications started coming. By 15th century, 16th century, Mughal invasion, then 16th century British East India Company, then 1757 direct rule, colonial power, UK ruling. During all these times, various levels of degradation happened to the dharmic living. The whole living has changed, and everyone knows, many of you know all these things. You can look at historical data. In 15th or 16th century, India was number 2 or number 3 in the world GDP. 15 to 16, 18% of GDP was by India, as per some of the famous economists' books published in the early 2000s. And the 15th, 16th century, UK's, Britain's world GDP was only 1 or 2%. But by 17th, 18th century, 19th century, India's GDP became 1 or 2%, and Britain's became 15, 20%. That is what a colonial power effect on India. A more, all those are gone, bygones are, let bygones be bygones. But a more serious degradation is the our changing of the education system. The whole Gurukula, even though some people do not study Vedas now, saying that Vedas are old, they are rituals, they belong to a different time. It may have some meaning at that time, but in the modern context, Vedas have no meaning. No, on the other hand, I say Vedas are all the more relevant today, especially with so much fright and arguments and almost the public discourse coming down to various levels. The Veda and Dharmic living has all the more an important place. And if nothing else, we must understand this, because this is the only civilization that has survived. We heard about Greek civilization, Roman civilization, Mayan civilization. All of them have disappeared. The only civilization still standing is the Vedic civilization from 6000 BC onward. So we must understand all this. But where we are in the 17th, 1800th century, the changing of the education, Lord Macaulay's famous 1835 statement, unless we change the educational system and produce, the Indian people needed to pursue the British colonial power and the whole English system in that one, not only the Vedic education, the Vedic values went down. A more, I would say, another effect of that was all these publications up to 17th century are in Sanskrit. So when we say Adi Shankara publishes Bhashyas in the 8th century or earlier whenever, or Ramanuja Deshika publications or Madhvacharya, the Raghavendra Swami's Mandarartha Manjari, Sainacharya's word by word meanings, the Vedas are in Sanskrit. The meanings provided are also in Sanskrit. So all works until 18th century is in. Then British came and changed the educational system. And not only that, around this time, in the 15th century, 16th century, of course, Europe suddenly discovered science and this thing and all that. Well, Indians have already discovered many of these, that the globe is, earth is round. We know what happened in 15th century, what was the positions of the church, and how the people finally said, no, it is not earth, it's not flat, it is earth is round. And for going against the teachings, he was imprisoned. All those stories we know. But nonetheless, the European, and they called it enlightenment, period of enlightenment. And the science they started. And they started, the enlightenment did not restrict itself to science itself. So they all wanted to study Sanskrit and the Vedas. And famous person from Germany, Max Muller, under contract to British East India Company, and also British authors Griffith and Wilson. They all studied Sanskrit from Indian masters, learned Vedas from Indian masters. And what excellent opportunities they had. Once they studied Sanskrit, Sainacharya has published word by word meanings of every mantra of all the 5 Vedas. So Max Muller, Wilson, Griffith translated that Sanskrit simply by learning Sanskrit, and with their knowledge of English, they translated Sainacharya's word by word meanings, and also Max Muller was the first, Sainacharya translated the Rig Veda meaning. So the whole Rig Veda in Sanskrit was translated in English. The only problem was, as I said earlier, because Sainacharya provided only the direct external meanings, And the direct meanings, if you take some of the word mantra, we may not get a full value. For example, I can just even say a very easy mantra that everybody knows. Apo va idagam sarvam vishwa bhutanyavaha pranava apaha, which all of us who do Sandhya chant 3 times every day. So what does it mean? Apo va idagam sarvam. Apa. Apa means water. Everyone knows meaning of direct external meaning of apa is water. Apo va idagam sarvam. Everything here is water. Hey, Veda mantra says, well, some people accept, yeah, because you see, land mass is very little, about 80% is water. And not only the earth, but also in the human body. So that's what it says. But if you take the spiritual meaning for apa, apa has also the meaning of energy. Then apa va idagam sarva makes sense. But if you simply look at direct meaning only, everything is water. Hey, I see landmass. So I don't want to take this particular. There are many passages. Unless you understand the spiritual meaning, you will not be able to fully understand the spirituality and the meaning of the mantras. So with all these things, the English translations and others who contributed wrote in English all said Vedas do not have that. So with all these going, these translations and all that, so it was not until 1900, in the 20th century or 19th century, Sri Aurobindo, 1872 was his birth, and 1872 to 1950, he went to, his father sent him to UK. His father wanted him to be an ICS person. He wrote ICS, but he didn't want to be ICS, so he did not go to he stood first, but he did not go to take the oral exam. So he came back to India, and he's a yogin. And by 1914, by his direct vision, he found out the spirituality and the wisdom in the Vedas. And Sri Kapali Shastri, a Vedic scholar, joined him in the 40s, and Aurobindo published his works in his journal Arya from 1914 onwards, and that Vedas have spiritual meaning, wisdom. So Kapali Shastri, a Vedic scholar, proficient in Sanskrit and various languages, Telugu, Tamil, and English. He joined Aurobindo. He translated Aurobindo's English works into Sanskrit. So the Sanskrit Pandits of India could understand the spirituality and wisdom explained by Aurobindo. And Professor R.L. Kashyap, who was a professor at Purdue, after his retirement, he went back to India. Of course, from 1998, he retired from Purdue. He went back and established a Sakshi in Bangalore and translated all the Veda mantras with spirituality and wisdom and psychological powers of meaning as explained by Sri Aurobindo. 1999 through 2014, he has published 26 volumes, all the Veda mantras in English with the Devanagari Veda mantra, English meanings that describe the spirituality and wisdom. And our Shastras always say that no student will be left without a teacher. When the student is ready, when the student is sincere and student wants to learn, a teacher will appear in front. That is what our Shastra and our masters said. And it was a typical example in my case. I was searching and searching, where is the wisdom? Where is the wisdom in Vedas? I am I'm a Veda practitioner. I said, the Jnana text, I studied the Upanishads. I taught Upanishads. I studied the Bhagavata, the Puranas. And I'm still asking, where is the wisdom? I did not understand where exactly is the wisdom and what is the wisdom. So I had a by chance meeting with Professor Kashyap in 2012, June. And in a 30-minute presentation, Professor Kashyap explained to me Aurobindo's spiritual and psychological meanings. And I myself had gone to Aurobindo Ashram in 2006 and purchased all these books, about 15 or 20 books. And I started reading. 2 or 3 of them I read about 30 pages. Some of them I read 20. Aurobindo's style English is very, very hard. He's a UK educated person. Very long sentences, very difficult to follow. So I had kept many of those books there. But once Professor Kashyap in the 30 minutes, all my practice and study and all that, I could start grasping, and I'm doing research. So that is what I will say. So what is the wisdom in this Vedas? Now, so all these 3 people in my book, I have added in the appendix Aurobindo, Kapali Shastri, and Kashyap. While each of their contribution is unbelievably phenomenal, I will use the word. Without Aurobindo, we would not have found out the spiritual and psychological meanings. Without Kapali Shastri joining Aurobindo and publishing some of his works in Sanskrit, the Sanskrit Pandits of India, this is the 1940s to 46, 50 time, the Sanskrit Pandits of India would not have fully understood the English publications of the spirituality and wisdom of Aurobindo. So they would not have them. Aurobindo translated about 3,000 mantras out of 10,552 Rigveda mantras. Kapali Shastri translated about 1,140 mantras. And Professor Kashyap. So the role of Aurobindo and Kashyap is very well described, because without them, there is no understanding of spiritual and psychological meanings. But without this R.L. Kashyap, we would not have, I would not have understood, I would not have been able to share this knowledge with others, and so many others followers have purchased his book from Sakshi and studying and understanding. He's giving seminars as well for years. That is that he single-handedly published all these things. So what is the wisdom? So all these 3 are our modern rishis. So what is the wisdom in the Vedas? This is described in there. My book is written in 2 parts. What I wrote about the Vedas from 6000 BCE and all the texts that came is in the first 6 chapters in part 1. In part 2, I am discussing the wisdom, and I'm going to give a brief statement here. The Vedas show all human beings how to lead a life with all-round perfection while pursuing whatever professional or employment and activity each human being wants to perform. You do not have to be chanting Veda mantras 24/7. You do not have to be a saint, oblivious to what is happening around the world. You can enjoy life. You can do whatever you want, but you must also lead a dharmic life. That's what the Veda says. And Vedas will show you how to perform all your tasks with all-round perfection. Note this point, all-round perfection. Even if you take the case of Albert Einstein, he's perfect in his physics or in his theory of relativity. But Veda says, any task that you touch, you can do with perfection. So once you start the Veda process, it will show you how to do this. So Veda is not a ritual. Veda is not just mantras, but Vedas will show every human being, because when if people are brought into this, if the Tadegam has created the people, then he has to give a way to show them to lead a life with a harmoniousness, with happiness, and do their tasks with all-round perfection. We have all taken this birth to do karma. So whatever karma we do, If we can do that with perfection, and that is what our boss looks for, give this work to employee A, because he will do it correctly without mistakes or with less mistakes. He will touch all bases and ensure that mistakes are less and also. Since in that manner, so by understanding what our Vedas say and going through this Vedic education, you can perform whatever your profession that you want to do. Only make a small part of your time available to understand this dharmic living and what Vedas says. So that is point number one. So I want all of us to get interest in the Vedas, if for no other reason that each of us will be able to perform our tasks with higher levels of perfection than before. You may already be doing at a high level of work, but the excellence of work, excellence is a race without a finish line. All other things, if there is a marathon, there is a 26 miles and 210 yards or whatever, there is a finish line. But excellence is, you can still continue to excel. You can go to higher levels of excellence. And that is what this, and not only in particular field, not only if you are a doctor, if you are a lawyer, if you are a housewife, if you are a financial analyst, you may be doing excellently, but you can still rise in excellence. Follow this, what Vedas say. That is the first point. And what else Vedas say? Vedas declare the existence of the Supreme Spirit, Tad-Ekam, that one. Tat Ekam, Ekam means one. One is not the single one, but it is in that not two, not many in that sense. Tad-Ekam, that one. And Devas. Devas are powers of light. So the Tad-Ekam became the later Brahman of the Upanishads. In the Upanishads, those who have studied Upanishads will talk about Brahman, they'll talk about Atman. It is the same thing. In Vedas, they say Tad-Ekam, because Vedanta has come from Vedas only. So all these spiritual ideas are available in the Vedanta also. So Vedas declare the existence of the Supreme Spirit, Tad-Ekam, which became later Brahman, and it talks about Devas, powers of light. And it also talks about Dasyus, powers of darkness. Devas, the names are Agni, Indra, Vayu, Surya, Saraswati, Aditi, various Devas. And each Deva has all the powers of Tad-Ekam, the Supreme, and they have a specialized psychological power. So in the case of Agni, Agni is, the psychological power is willpower, divine willpower. So once you invite Agni to yourself, that is why the emphasis on Havans, performing Havans and Yajnas, you are inviting Agni, you are participating in that one. But we will understand all these, the meaning of all these Yajnas also as we go along in these 12 lectures. So this Agni is the Agnir Hoda Kavikrad Satya Chitra Savastama Devo Deve Viragamata. That is a mantra of the Rig Veda. So Agni is the divine willpower. Now, for every human being to do any task correctly, one needs a willpower. Otherwise, what will happen is we take a project, after 3 or 4 classes, we drop out. So why we drop out? Because you lack the willpower or the motivation. You find some other reason and all that. So only with willpower. And Agni is called Kavikradu, divine willpower. Not only the willpower. Many people have willpower, many human beings have willpower, but they can look at only the present and look slightly into the future, what happens next year and all that. But our ability to look the distant future are much less. So that is possible only if you have invited Agni, and Agni is helping you. Indra is known as the divine mind. So by inviting Indra, your mind becomes divine. And you have divine thoughts, you think, and everything. All your thinking process and you begin again. So Agni and Indra, in fact, out of 10,552 mantras, all rishis, almost all rishis have mantras revealed to them of Agni and Indra. 2,000 mantras for Agni, 2,000 mantras for Indra. And the Indra of the Deva Indra of Rigveda is very different from the Indra of the Puranas, where we see that Indra becoming jealous and all that. The Devas. So you have heard the word Vedic God, Vedic Devas. The Deva is translated as a God, but it is not God. It is powers of light, div, to shine. From there, the word Deva has come. So the Vedic Deva as Agni, Indra, Vayu, they work harmoniously. There are no jealousy between them. You can invite Agni if you want, and Saraswati is the goddess of illumination, divine illumination. So in fact, I chanted 2 Veda mantras at the beginning invocation. Ganapati, Brahmanaspati and Saraswati are the 2 mantras that I chanted. Both are Rigveda mantras that I chanted. So you invite these devas, and without willpower, human beings will not be able to complete the task. Now, if you want to perform these tasks well, you need to invite. Now, along with Tadegam and the Devas, there are also Dasyus. Dasyus are powers of darkness. And their names are Vritra, Vala, Pani, and all that. And these Devas, now, in a way, you can think you can think about this Dasyus as the Shadribus. Shadribus, you would have heard the word. Shadribu means, Shad means 6, Ribu means enemy. The Shadribus, the Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. So these 6, all of us have. So that is the Dasyus. So to those people who have more of these, they are dominated by Dasyus. The people who have less of these, like our Acharyas, Shankaracharya, they have 0 Dasyus. They are more Daivik. So our goal is to, and like all of us, so these Shadribus that all of us have, and we all say, no, I won't get mad. I won't get angry. We know anger is not good for us, and we will say that I won't get angry. As long as things go well the way you want, you don't get angry. The moment things don't work the way, you snap. And however much we sit in a corner, I am going to get rid of my anger. It may or may not happen. But whereas what this says is, once you welcome Devas and Dasyus, Rigveda cites many symbolic battles. They are not physical battles. There are symbolic battles between Devas and Dasyus in Rigveda. As we study some of them, we can see in these lectures, which comes in the Srimad Bhagavata Purana as Indra killing Vritra, or the many Puranic stories where Devas and Rakshas are into a fight, which is actually, even though the Puranas are used to explain the Vedas, really what is happening is whatever are the symbolic battles, the Devas coming and trying to beat this, because the Dasyus are going to prevent these energies. You see, the Tadegam and Devas want to help us. They are sending us divine energies. But these Dasyus, you see, as they say, you say, hey, we have discovered the enemy, and it is us. It is our negative thinking and our thoughts and these dominance of these Shadribus that prevent us from clouding us thing. Even in Upanishad says, you want to understand the Atman, you cannot pray for the Atman, he will show. You say, when the impurities are gone, self reveals itself. That is the essential conclusion of the Upanishads. What does that mean? Get rid of all these impurities. By ourselves, it may or may not be possible. But with the Devas, because that's all the Devas' job. Devas' job is to defeat the Dasyus. Rig Veda describes the battle as symbolic. So Vedas, so once we do that, the powers of light, we are able to see better, we are able to rise in consciousness levels also. And we can eventually rise to the levels that we want. There are seven levels from Bhuhu, Bhuvaha, Suvaha, Mahaha, Tapaha, Janaha, Tapaha, Satyam, Prithivya, Saptadamavihi. The world is divided into seven, in fact, or in other ways in Puranas, you would have said, Irad Logam. There are 14 logas, 7 logas about earth, Antariksha, intermediate space, then yonder space, then Maharloga, then Tapologa, Janaloga, and Satyaloga. Satyaloga, 7th station is where the Tadegam, the Devas, and the Parime Vyoman, the mantras reside. And there are 7 logas beneath, Padalam, Atala, Vitala, Vitala, and all that we have read in the Puranas. So, how to this? And Vedas advocate yajna. Life itself is a yajna. We must perform yajna. Yajna, ya means, yajna consists of 2 words. Ya means strive for. The word ya in Sanskrit means strive for. Nya means knowledge. So the yajna means the person who is conducting the yajna is striving for knowledge. And what is the knowledge we are striving? Even though the current way of performing many things, we have become more transactional in nature. But that is not what is intended by this yajna. And Rig Veda says, life itself is a yajna. And in fact, if I want to use a word, I can say, this 12 lecture series, 1 lecture every week and all that, this itself is a yajna, or this is a tapas. This is, you are making your time available. You are many very busy persons. You could do very many other things, but you are spending this time to perform a yajna. What is that yajna? To understand what our Vedas say. So Vedas mention many yajna. Darshapurna Masau, Rajasuya, then Adhiratra, and in fact, there are only the Kerala Nambudris who are experts in the conduct of Adhiratra. I don't know how many people remember the professor in Berkeley, and the Agni book, and he's that one of the big books. Yeah. Yeah. There are a 2-volume Agni published by this. Show the other one also. This is a 2-volume Agni book published by Fritz Stahl. And Fritz Stahl, we don't have time. I have to cover a little bit more before the end of the class. The Fritz Stahl was a professor at Berkeley, California, Berkeley. And he made many trips to India. Finally, he found out the Kerala Nambudris of the northern part of Kerala. They are the only people who know to conduct the Adhiratra. And he conducted a 12-day Adhiratra. And it is described in those 2 books. Each is about 1,000 pages with a lot of details and all that. But some of the things we need, and a few Nambudris helped them. Their names are there. In 1975, they conducted this in April. Then another one they conducted much later in 2010 or 11. Same by this Fritz Stahl. And in 1975, I was in India at that time. And it was in April. And those who know Kerala in that April time, it is, sun is over the equator on March 22. March, April are extremely hot months. And at the end of the 12 days, as stated in the Adhiratra, performance correctly performed. That shows to the credit of these Nambudiri families. There are traditions of Nambudiri families who do nothing but this, teach the younger women. You all have to take your hands up. At the end of the 12 days, it rained. It is supposed to rain after doing this. And this Fritz Stahl measured the atmospheric qualities prior to the start and after the 12-day conduct of this yajna. There are elaborate procedures to conduct that Adhiratra yajna. We will discuss it in one of my, towards the 9th or 10th lecture, I will mention something about this Adhiratra yajna that was done in 1975. And this, and the details one has to go through to conduct a yajna, Rigveda. So these are all yajnas prescribed in that. So we must do the yajnas to do, and we will strive to hard to increase our knowledge, increase our understanding, and increase the dharmic life. And the devas will help you not only to divinize and take you to rise in consciousness levels. And these are all scientific. In the sense, scientific is if experimental verification is, everything need not be derived by theoretical, and there is theoretical physics and experimental physics. We find out the gravitational force. First year physics in college, you have a pendulum and measure the thing, and you can compute what is the value of G. You determine experimentally. You can also compute theoretically, but so there are experiments. In the same manner, very many things. Once you have to go through whatever process to conduct this experiment, but these experiments are conductable. And Fritz Stahl has written and made this publication about Adhiratra and the benefits. They have documented as well as it is possible. So the yajnas, we must move beyond. So Aurobindo's, now brief couple more sentences about Aurobindo's. So what about, so are you saying, so I want to quickly bring up the point. Whatever we are all doing until now, please continue what you are doing. There is nothing wrong. By understanding from these lectures and taking steps to understand what the spiritual meanings and what Vedas are actually saying, the same functions that we are doing, the same Ganapati Homam that you did, or the Navagraha Home that you did, or the Sudarsana Home that you did, or the Dhanvantari Home that you did, whatever benefit that you got without knowing any of these things, with knowing all these things, you will get little bit more because your understanding will deepen and your effort to walking towards the devas would improve. Whether, I'm not saying it has not improved. So one thing I want to say straight, the fact that I am providing this spiritual meaning and wisdom is primarily that the neglect of the Vedas must stop. People are abandoning the study of Veda. People do not have time because we look at the ROI and hey, by sending your child not to study Veda or not to understand this, but if they spends that time on C++, he can get an earlier job. He or she can get that ROI. By understanding Veda will tell you, you will rise, you will be able to perform your work in higher levels of perfection. And that is a sure way of your employer retaining you or you having success in your whichever profession you are doing. I'm not saying you are not having success now, but that will increase. Whatever levels each person is now performing, with a better understanding and with inviting and divinizing oneself, one will be able to increase and improve the performance. So I have almost come to the end of I wanted to give a 15 minutes. Now I will request. So the next 11 chapters will explain these points in an orderly, methodical fashion so that almost all attendees will obtain an authentic understanding of Vedas, of our Vedas, of the dharmic life enshrined in the Vedas and therefore Vedic culture. All of you already are chanting Veda mantras or performing the yajnas. All that will continue. And there is, we'll continue exactly by the Purva Mimamsa style, Sainacharya's work. But this provides added information that will give you additional motivation and momentum to those who are already doing this, to do this in a more understanding manner and a little bit more explicit. Those who have abandoned this, maybe I should take a look at it, if they can take a look at it. Because by all these understanding makes us better individuals. And we must also know, I must also quickly add, as we all know, nothing happens overnight. We must work for what we want. Our beginning to understand the wisdom in the Vedas and starting to take the baby steps to practice the Vedas will transform us and help us to lead our life with harmony and power. With better understanding of Vedas, all of us will become better practicing Sanatana Dharma followers. And once we become better practicing Sanatana Dharma followers, our continued practice of this Vedic civilization, culture, and dharmic living, the only civilization in the world that has survived all these 6,000 or 8,000 years, 6,000 BCE plus 2,000, 8,000 years, will contribute to not only for us to lead our lives harmoniously, but also will help to protect and sustain, leave the world for posterity in a better place. So with this, I think, because I have said I will assign 15 minutes for questions to take, and how is the way, I will leave it to my Shishya, Rangaraja. He will direct what he wants to say. You on mute?
Yeah. Yeah. There are three questions.
This can be taken. I must also, before taking the question, I also want to say, if it is a single lecture, I would have provided half an hour this. But since it is a 12 lecture, some of the questions that you have will be answered in my second, third, fourth lectures. So my own request is, if each of you will write down at the end of each class whatever questions you have, keep it to yourself. Sometimes those questions may be answered the second, third of them. Up to 7 or 8 lectures. Sometimes in 6, sometimes in 8 lectures, I'll be able to explain many of the things that I have said. And 9 through 12, I will give more time for answering questions and discussing. So that is one suggestion I want to say. But I will leave time for each class also. And any suggestions you have, you send it to me. I'll note that also. Okay, Rangarajan, tell me. Questions.
So there are 3 questions, Mama.
There are 3 questions. That is what.
Yeah, from the chat. Okay, first question from Bhushan.
Yes.
They say there are only 3 Vedas, Rik, Yajur, and Samaveda, and the 4th is Atharva, was added later. Is that correct? And did Vyasa created the 4th? First question.
The question is, the question that is posed is, there are only 3 Vedas. The 4th Veda, Atharva Veda, was created later. So was it added after or Vyasa's thing? I will say, I'll directly answer the question. No, Veda Vyasa classified into 4. I have heard many of these. And perhaps the Trayo Veda statement in Bhagavad Gita may have contributed to this. I'll tell you, there are Riks. The Trayo Veda I'll try to explain later. Now, I don't want to take time now. But I'll give a simple example. You see, those who are Vedantins in this, who are attending, I'm sure there may be some people who have studied Vedanta, and there are Upanishads, the Dashopanishads, and out of these, the Mandukya Upanishad, Mundaka Upanishad, and Prashna Upanishad, all these 3 belong to Atharva Veda. So nothing is added later. So, just like Ishavasya Upanishad is Shukla Yajurveda, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Shukla Yajurveda, the Chandogya Upanishad is Samaveda, the Mundaka, Mandukya, and Prashna Upanishad is Atharva Veda. So Atharva is from earlier times itself. Next question.
So the next question is from Venkatesh. He wants to know your view on Maha Mantra that is popularized by ISKCON and Sri Vaishnavas.
The second question is, what is my opinion about Maha Mantra popularized by ISKCON and Sri Vaishnavas? I have no position on this. All mantras are sitting in Parame Vyoman. There is a Rigveda mantra that states all mantras in Parame Vyoman, and they say along with the Devas and this. And one definition of mantra, those who have my book can go to section 1.3.3, and it is not my definition, it is the definition by Sri Aurobindo. Mantras have a power to transform you. Not only the person who chants, the person who listens, and not only to transform them, but also the surroundings, environment, and not only to transform them, to create new environment. These are all statements of Sri Aurobindo from his Sikat of Veda. So I have no position on Mahamantra. Next question.
The question is from the same person. Are Puranas not real then? So we should not take Srimad Bhagavatam literally?
No. That also, no. The question is, are Puranas not literal? The third question is, are Puranas, because I quoted the example of Indra, Deva Indra is Deva. All Rigvedic Devas are powers of light. There is no animosity between them. Because, we even current worshippers may think, oh, if I went to, of course, I have to be careful in giving examples. No. You see, we have a feeling that if I don't worship this God and I only worship that God, whether that God will be angry. No, none of the gods will be angry with you. They are all, if you invite them, they will come and help. If you don't invite, they will let you to do that. So people say, why there is Dasyus and all that. Hey, if you want to make your mistake, Tadegam is not going to not prevent you. So this question is Puranas. Puranas convey this meaning. Everybody will not be able to do so. Puranas is a help to do that. But I will agree with the basic fact that if you look at Shiva Purana, you will see Shiva is the supreme. If you do Vishnu Purana, Vishnu may be supreme. That is minor. That's not the, don't take those things. But that convey a lot of meanings. Srimad Bhagavatam, among all these things, we have to worship the book itself. Wherever that book is, Lord Krishna and will be there. That Lord Vishnu will be there. That talks about. So please do not have any doubts about Srimad Bhagavata. All the Puranas and our Itihasa Puranas, Ramayana, Bharata, we will discuss that more later.
The next question is from KG Ashok. Is the practice of yoga complementary to understanding the Vedas?
Practice of yoga, in fact, I would say that understand the Vedas will expand your practice of yoga, the Ashtanga yoga, the Yama Niyama. You see, we all practice pranayama, we all practice asana and all that. But Ashtanga Yoga, Patanjali states that the yama, there are 5, you can see. Not only until we verify ourselves that I am happy with all the 5 steps, I lead my life with that. Before that, I should not even go to the 2nd step. If you literally follow that, then none of us will be able to do anything. That is the way we are leading our life. So, but understanding the Vedas, these Vedas, Vedangas, and Upangas would give it as a more broader. It's all the same. Satyam Tapas Shraddhayam Juhomi. The basic ingredients are nothing new that we do not know. Only thing is our desire and willingness. And that will be more if people are exposed to these Vedas from childhood onwards. So Satyam Tapas Shraddha, that is the same thing. Once you follow that, Yama Niyama are nothing but these. And Patanjali says that do not go to step 3 until you have mastered and practice steps 1 and 2. That's what Patanjali says, not me. So we had to, everywhere, the Veda and the Dharmic understanding will contribute to yoga, bhakti, Vedanta. That is my opinion. And Vedic education, it must start with Veda, because everything started with Veda. And because these things were lost, additional texts were derived. And these are all side paths to get to that. That also is possible. By yoga also, you can get to whatever Veda says. But by studying Veda, your Veda practice, your yoga practice will improve, your Vedanta practice will improve. That is my feeling.
The next one is from Dr. Sadhana Thakkar. What is the solution for increasing willpower?
Invite Agni. The question is, what is the solution to invite your willpower? Now, whether to increase your willpower or the persons who do not have willpower, start Agni Mantra. In my book, the first sukta talks about Agni. Look at the importance. Vedavyasa has placed for the Agni. That doesn't mean Indra is not important. Everybody is important. Somebody has to place, because Agni has, the very first mantra is, and you may also have heard this story that is coming out, that is when this gramophone record, right? Once the recording was coming out, first he went to go to Max Muller to say something, to see whether it reproduces correctly. And Max Muller chanted this first mantra of Rigveda, Agnimi ile purohidam yajnasya deva mritujam hota aram ratnadatamam. What it says is, Agnim ile, I adore you, Agni. Purohidam, you are the one who leading from front. Purohida is priest, and Agni is the one who conducts all our yajnas. Even though we keep a human priest, in the inner yajna, by inviting Agni, Purohidam, yajnasya devam, he is the Lord of the yajna. Agnime ile purohidam, yajnasya devam, Ritvijam, he is a Ritvijam, he is completely truth, Ritvijam. Hota Aram. Hota Aram, he will call other gods. He will see which god, which deva's psychological power you need. He will decide. Hota Aram. Ratna Dadamam. Ratnam means, even though Ratnam is gems and stones, Ratnam is the Adhyatmik Ratnam is the felicities. What are other strengths you need to develop? So the very first mantra for Agni, Agnimi ile purohidam yajnasya deva mritujam hota aram ratnadatamam. Chant this mantra, one mantra, every day. Then Agni, you are inviting Agni, and you must have, and these rishis, I will discuss all that as part of the class. Any other question?
The next one is from C. Malladi. So basically he's asking, where in Vedas they say other varnas should not read Vedas?
There is a question, where in Veda says other varnas should not read Vedas? I don't think it is said anywhere. And I also do not think that ladies must not this. Whether the strict chanting needed to officiate as priest so that the phala of a yajna will come, because according to Purva Mimamsa, the correct chanting of the Veda mantra and the correct performance of the yajna will provide to you the benefit of the whatever is prescribed for the phala for that yajna. That people may not have the discipline to go through. So maybe because of the go through, I really do not think that is in fact Nana Dharmanam in those times, 6,000 and 4,000, there was none of this. So they, even though in this Upanishads, we say, the Chandogya Upanishads, we say, before going to thing that Jabala and what's his name? If you are going to, he went to Satyaketu, I think he went to his mom and asked her, what is my lineage? I want to go to a guru. So she said, I don't know what lineage you are. I worked as a young person at various places and I got you. So he went to the guru And Guru asked, what is your lineage? Then this guy said, I asked my mom. He said, I am Jabala, and you are, I forget his name, Satyaketu. So you say Satyaketu Jabala. And and Guru said, only a person, Brahmin. The Brahmin, again, do not confuse with the Brahmin caste. Brahma, one who wants to get to Brahma, one who is taking the efforts to that, he's a Brahmin. Brahmana, in the Brahmana books, the word has come from that, is it will lead you to Brahma. So only such a person, only a truthful person can be led to Brahma. So I will teach you. So no Varna, even though later practices got, whether when it happened, I do not know, but in the Vedic period, ladies are, there are 30 lady rishis, Vagambrani and many others are rishis or Vedis. Now I'm coming to the end of the time. Shall we stop? Any other questions? Quick.
There are a couple of questions.
I will try to answer email. I do not want to exceed the time. I have been told not to exceed the time. I want to chant the closing prayers. Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti